black coffee.
This is the Exchange Coffee Podcasting Network. Coffee people talking to coffee people about coffee and things coffee adjacent. This episode of The X-Files is brought to you by Kavoya Specialty Coffee, where coffee is always a collaborative voyage. Welcome to The X-Files, podcast from the past with Mark Inman and Todd Mackey. Down the stairs, around the corner, down the long hall, and through the double doors, you'll find the archives for the Exchange Coffee podcast, episodes from 2018 and 2019, before we had a studio. We're going back through the archives and improving the sound quality where we can, re-recording introductions, and merging two-part episodes into a single episode. This is episode 6 of The X-Files, and the topic, just in time for Halloween, is scary physical defects in green coffee grading, from episodes 23 and 24 originally recorded in 2019, before we had a studio and recorded in person where I can slap Mark and Todd if they touch their microphones. I would suggest a drinking game where you take a drink every time you hear one of them touch or bump or do something they shouldn't be doing with their microphone, but I'm afraid you'd be drunk before the end of the episode. Perhaps I'm exaggerating. But in any case, now, here they are, Mark and Todd.
Let's get into our spooky, scary defects Halloween special. And you've graciously offered to pair each of the physical defects. So we're focusing on physical defects in green grading.
Yeah.
But you've offered to pair these with scary films from across film history. So thank you in advance.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to hear what you've come up with.
And this is in line with our new sponsor, Blockbuster Video, who is a proud sponsor of the Exchange. All of these movies that we will talk about today can be found at your local Blockbuster. Mention Todd and Mark, and you'll get 20% off a scary movie. Right? Did we get a sponsor? No, we didn't get a sponsor.
I hope there's a Blockbuster Video somewhere. I mean, I understand that there's like a location left somewhere in Alaska, but who knows?
Well, if you are in Alaska, mention Todd and Mark for 10% off.
Go get it. It's drastically reduced in 30 seconds.
Oh, that's right. I said 20 earlier. Sorry, 20% off.
You got to know. You got to book with Mark right away.
Right away.
The price goes up.
Shifting deals.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we are going to focus on green physical defects.
Right. And last year was taste defects.
Correct.
Yeah.
And by no stretch are we going to forego correlating some of these physical defects with potential cup outcomes, but we wanted to essentially go through the SCA washed Arabica green coffee defect guide.
Yes.
As just a discussion starter for what you might see in a green coffee sample as you are evaluating and considering a use, placement, and or purchase. Important thing to talk about at the gate, of course, is what is a standard sample size. So to just take a moment, we're again talking strictly through the lens of SCA sampling procedure, which calls for a 350 gram sample. It's important to note that all of these defects that we're going to talk about are recognized and classified according to not only SCA standard, but also the Green Coffee Association of New York, and international bodies such as the Colombian Coffee Federation, the Ethiopian Commodity Exchange, so on and so forth. So they may be classified differently in terms of the national grades for export, but they're going to be recognized. And of course, the causes, in terms of where they're coming from and their origins are very, very similar. So just keep that in mind as we go through. And again, the important place to start is that we have 350 grams of green coffee.
Yes.
From here, we break down the green physical defects into two types according to the SCA standard. And this is Category 1 and Category 2, also often detailed as primary or secondary. Now, we'll start with the scariest of defects, which are the primary defects, of course. Mm-hmm. And to kick us off, we are going to start with the full black defect. What are we talking about when we talk about a Hollywood film, scary film for the full black defect?
Well, when I think of a full black defect, I'm thinking of the kind of murky, musty, kind of swampy flavors that you can get in a full black defect. And nothing captures that more than the 1954 black and white 3D monster movie, The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
You're so good at this.
Which 3D black and white to me is a real amazing feat. I don't know how they pulled it off, but it was a 3D movie back in 1954.
Science couldn't explain it, but there it was, alive in the deep, deep waters of the Amazon. A throwback to a creature that had existed 100 million years ago, immensely strong and destructive.
Yeah, I mean, how did they?
I don't have a clue.
It's like a different technology, the different type of glasses you would have used. I mean, you were
Yeah, I was in high school then, sure. Yeah. No, Todd, I was not even born yet. I don't think my parents. My parents were born, but yeah, no, I don't know how they did it. But anyways, that it fits the taste defect perfect. It was one of the easiest ones to match up here.
Most definitely, and full black defect, very easy to physically identify. As our coworker and friend Rob Steven, who actually had a hand in writing this classification guide.
Yes.
Always says, black is black, and when you are grading a sample, you can quite literally ask yourself, is this seed, this coffee bean black? Is it yellow? Is it brown? Is it red? If it's anything other than black, it is not a full black. And the reason to be cautious here is that a full black is a 1-to-1 full equivalent primary defect, meaning that if you find one full black bean, you have disqualified the coffee for SCA's specialty grade. So the reason is, as Mark aptly pointed out, this is a big threat to cup quality, musty flavors, over fermented flavors, all sorts of potential mold characteristics, and a strong correlation to the phenol cup defect, which of course is never pleasant, that sort of pool water taste. This is something that most typically will occur and when coffee is left to over ferment in the cherry on the trees. It's an agricultural issue, of course, and the blackening does come from the fermented pigment, with the effect of microorganisms and high moisture and sugar content on the tree. But this also, beyond just the risk in the cup, it also has an ochratoxin risk, which, take it or leave it,
right,
is something real and something to look out for. Full black, 1-to-1 primary defect, a total disqualifier. But much like the full black, we have what's called a full sour.
Yes.
Now, full sour is potentially like most likely those other beans that you might have thought were black, the yellow, red, orange colored seeds, fully covered through and through. Often new graders will see a discoloration in the silver skin on the outside of the seed, in specific for honeyed coffee or naturally processed coffee. The cheat here when you're grading the sample is to just turn that bean over, rub it on your grading mat or on a sheet of paper or the table, what have you, use your fingernail. And if that color is coming off, that's just the color of the silver skin, and that's, of course, not the sour defect. Additionally, a good way to detect sour is that often the embryo of the seed has turned and or fallen out. So at the very top of the rounded back of the seed, opposite the center cut, you would have the embryo, or what would become the shoot for the new plant. And souring would essentially happen as this has gone off and fallen out or is soon to be. So you can look for that sort of discoloration at the top. Usually when you see this partially, you see it on that side and around that piece as well. Partial sour, where do you put us in terms of a scary movie for this one, Mark?
No, this is a full sour, not partial sour.
Oh, sorry, full sour.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We'll get there.
Well, so this one, where I get this is the 1983 Stephen King thriller Christine. The character Arnie, as he became bonded with Christine the car, just became a sour individual and not pleasant to be around. So, yes, 1983 Stephen King. Classic Christine.
He just wasn't pleasant to be.
He wasn't. He was, even to his best friend, he was really sour.
What a mean guy.
Yeah.
Well, sour we look out for not only because of the color and the variation, but of course the stinker cup, the over-fermented cup, acetic acid or vinegar. These are traits that the sour physical defect will lean towards. These are also an issue from ripe cherries or overripe cherries, I should say. These can also be issues presented during processing, wet processing specifically, due to over-fermentation. So definitely one to look out for. And again, it is a 1-to-1 full equivalent primary defect. The full sour, if you find one in a 350 gram sample, would disqualify it for SCA's specialty coffee grade. Moving on, we have the unicorn of defects, and that is not because it is a lovable mystical creature. It's because it is very unlikely, at least in consuming countries, to be found. This is fungus damage. Mm-hmm. What movie are we associating fungus with?
Well, this was a tough one because you think about fungus as a horror medium. It doesn't really, there's not a lot that leaps to mind. But I did some digging with my research team here, and we found a fantastic movie, the 2018 horror movie called Annihilation. And there's a there's a mutant fungus that's killing people, and there is a horrific death scene in a pool where a fungus has wiped out a man. He's like half there, recognizable, and half fungus. Well worth seeing. You could YouTube clip just that scene alone and get the idea of it. But it does fit the look and feel, the appearance of the same beans that are fungal damaged in coffee. So the 2018 thriller, Annihilation.
Can you describe its form?
No.
And I have to imagine with 2018, this must be a gruesome scene.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's wonderful.
Oh man, fungus damage. So again, the unicorn of defects here, because we typically don't see it. The reason being, fungus is one of the only physical defects that will spread, not only within a sample, but within inventory. So if you do find fungus, look out. The way you can tell that you're looking at fungus, you might find colors similar to sour, maybe some white mildew associated with it. But the real definitive characteristic of fungus is that there is a growth on the seed itself, meaning, it's raised, it looks pretty angry, and, this, of course, comes from poor storage conditions. Cup qualities are disgusting, fermentation, musty, moldy, phenolic, just everything you do not want in a nice coffee. And again, if and when you stumble across this, take action to separate the coffee that you're finding it within, because it can, under poor conditions, spread to nearby materials. So, fungus.
And have you come across that a lot in cupping, Todd?
Truthfully, no, and I would never call it. Obviously, on the cupping side, you might find it manifesting as phenol or mold
or mildew. Yeah,
and you're most likely to see it. Unfortunately, I don't mean to call out an origin for telling people they will find it, because that's of course never true. But the places you'd be most likely to see it are Indonesian coffees, in particular. Yes. Wet hulled coffees, just for how the trade and the value chain is exchanging coffee and the high moisture that it spends a significant amount of time within. So, yeah, the times that I've come across this and been able to then bring it physically to the lab to teach with has been when I've taken mill floor sweepings and graded these out. And totally non-romantic unless you're really into coffee quality and understanding kind of the processes organically that are going to go on when coffee is degrading. But yeah, and otherwise it's really unusual. I mean, you just don't see it. It just doesn't come up because it's got to be, the coffee has to be, at a pretty extreme moisture for an unusual amount of time. And people who are, taking care of coffee, owning coffee, trading coffee, milling, they they do a great job, and this is often avoided for how serious it is. So if you do stumble upon it and that's not your coffee, keep your distance, because that is not something you want to fool around with.
True.
1-to-1 is a full primary or category 1 defect. One bean in a 350 gram sample, though it's unlikely you'd find just one with this particular defect because of its spreading organic sort of living nature. But one would be enough to disqualify the coffee. So moving on, we have everyone's favorite. This has created many a story. I've probably sat at numerous campfires at Roaster Guild retreats and over the years and talked about foreign matter. What have you found in your coffee? My goodness, the things, everything from like cinder blocks to, bullet shell casings. It's crazy. But foreign matter is exactly as it sounds, something that is in the coffee that should not be there. What do you have for us?
Well, I have the classic John Landis film, The Last Werewolf in London, because for the British, that American traveler turning into a werewolf was a foreign matter. Oh, the delivery. I blew it on the delivery.
That's genius. I mean, the delivery was pretty funny too. But
we were attacked by a lycanthrope, a werewolf. I was murdered, an unnatural death. And now I walk the earth in limbo until the werewolf's curse is lifted.
Shut up.
Hey, we got to give you one from time to time.
Yes, you do.
And it's good. I mean, I'm sure the listeners are happy to know that Mark Inman is only human.
That's true.
Just let that sink in. Everybody, be glad. Be glad. Foreign matter. What do we typically see, Mark? What have you typically seen in your samples?
Well, yeah, most people get chips of concrete from the patios, rocks. You do see sticks a lot of the time. That's the average. I would say that rocks are going to be the predominant thing. You will. It's not a if. It's a always. You're going to see these if you're a roaster. It does encourage you to look at things like destoners and rare earth magnets if the rocks themselves have any type of metallic content to trap that before it gets into grinders and things where it can really cause problems down the line. But yeah, mostly sticks, rocks. There was an interesting Roasters Guild retreat discussion on foreign matter, like the weirdest things people have found. And the two that came up was a mummified frog, an entire frog, and a human finger that was also dried and mummified.
Man, if that's not spooky, what is?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, horrible. Yeah, I mean not to laugh at someone's clear dismay, but wow.
Yeah.
With some of the milling equipment you see, on the Origin side, I mean, it's no surprise that they would be, unfortunately, some, if user operator error comes into play, I mean, that's unforgiving.
I'm just thinking, who had their finger lopped off and just said, oh, well, let's get this treated. Forget where the finger went. That's irrelevant. And walked away. And then it ended up in a bag and sewn up and shipped. I'd love to know the backstory on that one.
It's interesting you bring that up because I think about it from a completely different perspective where I'm like, oh man, yeah, we can't send that 15 bag microlot to that mill because we won't know if it could come out.
Right.
Right. I mean, a lot of these mills are so big that it's like to even put like 50 sacks of coffee through and know that you're going to get it back is a question mark. So, I mean, needle in a haystack.
That is true.
Finger in a coffee
sack
mill.
of coffee. Yeah.
Oh, it's like feels oddly good to laugh about that.
But what's surprising about this, and I'll tell you with the foreign matter thing, is one foreign matter is one full defect, and it is very, very common in coffee. And so you think about how many coffees are, statistically taken out of specialty grading based on this. It would be a pretty high amount if you were to really be a stickler about it.
Well, and this brings up a really important sort of value that the grader has to bring to the table, or bring to the lab, so to speak. It's the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law.
Yeah.
You're talking about a sample that if taken properly is going to be drawn from a minimum of 10%, the number of packages, bags, cartons, etc., that the lot has been stored in. It's aggregated and it's representative of the whole. And if you pull those 350 grams that might have one of the only little fragments of patio, or a stick that is the same size, density, and shape, and a coffee bean, and makes it through the mechanical sorting, it's a really unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
But you have to hold that intention with the fact that if you put your coffee out and you're a super premium brand, and a retailer breaks a grinder on a stone, or stumbles upon a coffee that their customer is looking at with a confused look, saying, well, why is there sticks in my coffee? There's a brand sort of defamation impact that is real. So that's why I think SCA would call this a 1-to-1 primary defect. So one instance in 350 grams would disqualify the coffee. But you have to also be practical and think real world coffee.
Sure.
As a buyer.
Sure.
So a good tension. But moving on, we have dried cherry or pods. Now, really important here. We'll get into the category 2 related defects, hull and husk. But in this case, a dried cherry or pod is definitively so because the seed itself is intact inside the material. So you could have a pod that is broken on one side. If the seed is encased, this is definitively a cherry or pod. And these are full 1-to-1, full equivalent category 1 defects for the potential of over-fermented, moldy, damp, or phenolic flavors that they can present. Of course, in addition, the appearance and the roasting, the roasting impact can be significant. So where did you associate us on the movie scale, Mark?
Well, this one was easy for me because there was a movie that scared the crap out of me as a child. I'm not going to I know you want to say it's the 1956 version because of my age, but it actually is the 1978 remake. Donald Sutherland in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because these were pod people. A terrifying movie to me as a child. I could still remember the scenes with the pods and the people coming out of the pods, and just how horrifying that movie was. The interesting thing about that movie, if you had seen it and had forgotten, it was Leonard Nimoy was in that movie, and a very, very young Jeff Goldblum was in that film.
Kibner's book is awful. His ideas are garbage. Kibner's ideas are pure garbage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know we had the opportunity to see.
And I think it's pre-Big Chill. It may have been his first movie, as far as I know.
Wow. Mark, you are endearing the audience. I'm sure. I mean, you're so human this episode. You've experienced fear?
Oh, yeah,
I had no idea. This is crazy.
As a young lad in the theaters.
I mean, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Yeah, I've been dead inside for years since then. But no, back then, yes, I had emotion in human range.
But that brings us to severe insect damage, which is, of course, a category 1 defect. We'll also deal with slight insect damage at the same time. So we have in insect damage, we have of course a number of insects depending on origin, but namely the coffee berry borer beetle, or broca as it would be locally named in Spanish-speaking countries. These would be a very small insect that bores into the seed, lays eggs. The larva would then eat its way out. It creates these sort of tunnels through the seed. Of course, the coffee being compromised, the skin having a perforation, the seed having a perforation, lots of moisture, lots of sugar. There can be fermentation, souring, blackening of the beans, depending on how severe this is. But the way to define insect damage, whether it's severe, which is a primary or category 1 defect, or slight, which is a category 2 defect, is by the number of perforations. So if you count these perforations, if you can count to 3 and or keep going, it is severe insect damage. If you can count to only 2 or less, then you have what is called slight insect damage. Now, 2 things you have to look out for. There is, on coffee that's been in storage for a time, a very high likelihood that the embryo has shriveled and fallen out of a seed. And it is one of the most common mispicks as new graders, that on the very top, again, opposite the center cut, on the back side of a seed, you would see what is like a little hole. If this hole is there, it's not a perforation into the interior of the seed, and it's not discolored from moisture pre the coffee's processing and drying. This is most likely the absence of the embryo of the seed, and we get people teaching the Q all the time that this is mispicked as slight insect damage. So look out for that. But additionally, we're looking for very specific perforations, 3 or more, severe insect, up to 2 slight insect. And just to give everyone a sense of how these classify, this is our first in a number of different defects that have full equivalents that are not 1-to-1. So in the case of the category 1 severe insect damage, you can have up to 5 that would equal 1 full category 1 defect. So just to recap, if you have 5 or more severe insect damaged beans, you would actually disqualify the coffee for specialty. In the case of the category 2 slight insect damage, you could actually have 10, and that would equal 1 category 2 defect. So in a 350 gram sample, you would actually need 60 slight insect damaged beans. That's individual beans with 1 to 2 perforations from Broca to disqualify if that were the only defect that was in the sample, 350 grams. But let's get on to the good part. What do you have us aligned with here in terms of scary Halloween film?
Well, keeping on the Jeff Goldblum theme, I'm going for the 1986 remake of the classic horror movie The Fly. This is a genetic accident gone awry where a man gets fly DNA in his body as he's doing teleportation, and he mutates into a fly. Interesting thing, though, since 1986, there's been a lot of advancements in genetic technology. I think we're due for a remake for this movie. So any Hollywood producers out there listening to Todd and Mark, A, make a movie about us and give us a giant contract, and B,
sure, that'd
be great. Yeah, but aside from that, consider remaking The Fly. It was a fantastic movie. Again, the idea of that, your body transforming is terrifying. So
Human teleportation, molecular decimation, breakdown, and reformation is inherently purging.
That's where I went with that one. This is not the 1958 original. I think that the 86 version would capture this defect far more accurately.
Awesome. Okay. Well, this is sort of the natural segue to our category 2 defect.
Yes.
So to date, or to the moment, I should say, we've talked until slight insect damage of only category 1 defects. All of these defects, when the full equivalent is reached, whether 1-to-1 or in the case of severe insect damage, 5-to-1, these would disqualify a 350 gram sample for specialty coffee according to SCA. Now, as we transition into category 2 defects, the important thing to note is that we, according to the SCA standard, have the allowance of 5 full equivalent category 2 defects. So as you're keeping score and as you're grading samples looking forward, make sure to keep that in mind. This allowance is reasonable, and of course these category 2 defects are named as such because the potential cup severity, the roasting issues they might present, for example, severe to slight insect damage, change in density, change in the potential characteristics that could be affected by roast. This is exactly why we have this distinction between the 2 categories of defects. To start us off for category 2 defects, we of course have the category 2 comparable to full black, which is partial black, meaning up to but not exceeding half the surface of the seed is blackened. What do you have for us, Mark, with partial black?
And not broken, chipped, and cut?
No, we're going to get to.
Oh, okay, we're getting to that. Well, partial black, you threw this. Partial black was a tough one because I mean, where do you go with this one? So I went for Beetlejuice.
I won't do 2 shows a night anymore. I won't.
Because the character Beetlejuice wore a black and white suit in that movie throughout the film. So
that is a classic.
That's a great movie.
That is a classic. If anyone who's listening, if you have not seen Beetlejuice,
you want somebody out of the house. I want to get somebody out of your house.
Turn us off right now. Go watch it, then come back to us, and you'll get what we're talking about.
We'll be here later for you. Don't think twice.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That to me that was quintessentially. I mean, it was a pretty horrifying movie, pretty troubling, but so fun. And then at the same time, it made like this crossover into the mainstream. Like it was a breakout film. I mean, obviously the acting was fantastic and the look was amazing. But what was it about Beetlejuice that took it from like really kind of I don't know. I guess I wouldn't call it horrifying, but certainly a scary movie. How did it break out? I mean, what's your take on that, Mark?
Why did that movie break out?
Yeah.
Well, I think it was Michael Keaton at probably the top of his game
sure.
Who is a very funny person. Gina Davis, of course, is at a big point in her career. Along with Alec Baldwin. And then you had Catherine O'Hara from SCTV, who's now in Schitt's Creek, I think is the name of the show she's on. But Canadian comedic actress, incredible cast. Winona Ryder, a very funny cast, great music.
So partial black, same type of potential cup characteristics, same causes and issues, just not as full a manifestation. In the category 2, partial black is a 3-to-1 full equivalent. And when we have 3 partial blacks, that would equal 1 category 2 defect. Just to recap again, the full equivalent up to 5 allowance. This would mean we would need 18 partial blacks to disqualify a specialty coffee. Again, if that's the only defect, unlikely, but if it were the only defect you were to find in a 350 gram sample. So moving on, we have the same type of recognition for a partial sour, which is again not more than half the seed covered in sour or manifest the sour defect. So what do you have for us, Mark, for that?
Well, that one I have the 1978 John DeBello classic, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Attack.
Because a lot of those tomatoes were probably pretty sour, and as they were killing people, so partially sour tomatoes can have a sourish edge to it. So a classic film that had the hit song Puberty Love in it.
Cover your ears, everyone!
So if you could catch that movie, it's a good late 70s kind of campy B-movie horror film.
The tomatoes are hurling themselves?
Yes. Yeah, they're attacking them via air, which off stage it was just stage hands throwing tomatoes at people. And they would latch onto your neck and start to chew it, your jugular vein. They would be holding the tomato near their neck and screaming.
But they didn't. They were just like nameless, faceless tomatoes. There wasn't like a gang of.
Yeah. Tomatoes. There were thousands of them. Yeah.
But they were completely unanimous, like anonymous. Sorry. So you're not like, oh man, Joey, that one.
Oh no. Yeah, no. They were just. It was almost like insert alien film. It could have been anything, but it happened to have been tomatoes. The poster has a tomato with big teeth on it. Although in the movie, I don't remember teeth being involved, but they somehow attacked you and chewed on you and made you bleed.
Huh.
But I don't remember seeing actual teeth in the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that, we have a great, local farm culture. I'm sure, Northern California the same. I'm surprised there's not, the CSAs don't play with that for, those few weeks in the summer where there's only tomatoes in your basket.
Oh, I think that there are. I looked it up when I was doing the research here. There's the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes Festival, which is a tomato festival, not necessarily a movie thing. So farmers markets have goofed on this, in their own
good
marketing.
Well, few. That's good to know. I mean, we need to see something like that on the East Coast. All right, so same.
And there's actually a Nintendo game for the Game Boy, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes game, so you could play that.
So we have partial sour, 3-to-1, full equivalent, category 2 defect. Moving on, we have broken, chipped, and cut. Now, broken, chipped, and cut is a really common defect to see in coffees that are, washed and mechanically processed. This would be damage that might be introduced by a depulper, and in this case, discolored, whereas you might get similar but different breaking or chipping, cutting in the process of dry milling green coffee, but the coffee would be low enough in moisture where you wouldn't see the same sort of discoloration. You, in grading, would identify all of these physical issues, align them, and count them together, and you can recognize them as a category 2 defect when you have 5 individual beans. So it's a 5-to-1 full equivalent. Category 2 defect. What is our movie, Mark?
The 1974 classic, directed by Tobe Hooper actually is his name, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because he was a broken man who chipped and cut people up with a chainsaw. $140,000 budget for a movie that's made well more than that in returns.
My goodness. I mean, talk about a cult classic.
Yeah.
There is no debate.
And a sequel. They had a sequel to that movie at one time.
Yeah. I'm surprised you would put that movie in a category 2 slot, given its
prominence
seriousness and severity. Yeah. But obviously, I mean, broken, chip, cut is no joke. If we're talking, the worst of the worst in this case are, grinder grade coffees out of some origin countries. These are, almost entirely broken, chipped, and cut. And while some of them can have a decent cup characteristic, they are no joke when it comes to managing in the roaster. If you have a perforated drum, do not do it. If the gapping on your solid drum to your faceplate has not been thought about or managed in some time, this could lead to fire and or issues. And of course, the more common sort of encounter here is just disparity in density and development of the final roast color, which you might see vary more in the case of a heavily broken, chipped, or cut coffee. Our next category 2 defect is immature or unripe. This is an issue of coffee that has not developed. It may be due to agricultural or a nutritional issue. It might also be because coffee that is being harvested is either strip picked in the case of mechanically harvested coffees, or it's just pulled at a point where it's not quite ready to be harvested, or it shouldn't be for the potential quality that we're looking for in the case of specialty. These beans look most typically that lime green color. They're usually undersized, as you might imagine, and the silver skin is not quite ready to rub off. So whether with your fingernail or on that grating mat you use, you can always rub this, and you would find that that silver skin wouldn't be quite developed enough to actually rub off. But enough with the boring stuff, Mark. Where do you put unripe for us?
Well, my initial thought was to go for the original movie Child's Play with the doll Chucky.
Hi, I'm Chucky.
But I'm actually going for the what year was that movie? 1998 film, The Bride of Chucky, because the jokes were very immature, as well as the characters very immature. So I'm going for The Bride of Chucky, 1988 film.
Sorry, Jack. Chucky's back.
That kept the same character as Chucky, but introduced a female doll, which was voiced by the wonderful actress Jennifer Tilly, who's also a professional poker player.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yes, she's very highly ranked.
And who do you have on the team digging all this stuff up? I mean, what a force. You guys are
people who also serve on the board of directors of the Criterion Collection. So you the same. They are part of my advisory board for this show.
Well, thank goodness. Where do we run into unripe coffee? Most typically in coffees that are plantation grown and mechanically harvested. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of coffee that specialty roaster is probably going to see unripes in is Brazil coffee. This is not an unusual happenstance. If you're wondering what you might run into for cup characteristics, this is going to be either hay-like, and these coffees would typically be associated with Quakers. roasters or coffees that don't roast because they don't have the constituents, the sugars and other organic materials to develop in the roaster at the same rate as fully mature coffee seeds. But you're also going to see the potential of astringency or a drying type of cup characteristic. If you are unfamiliar or curious to better calibrate your expectation around the description, quote unquote, astringency, go to the grocery store, buy a green banana, as green as you can find it, and take a bite of that. That is a great example of what astringent coffee would taste like. That is immature. It is a 5-to-1 category 2 full equivalence. And that brings us to withered coffee. Withered is, of course, a nutritional deficiency or lack of water during the development of the seed. These coffees would look on the back rounded side of the bean, almost raisined. And they, of course, are undersized, lack the type of organic material to develop in the roaster, typically would char or scorch. And of course, they don't look very appealing in the green. They are a 5-to-1 category 2 defect. Mark, where do you have us with withered?
Well, withered was easy because if you look at the classic pictures of withered beans, it reminds me so much of the 1932 Boris Karloff classic, The Mummy. And nothing says Halloween like that movie.
The Mummy. Is it dead or alive? Human or inhuman? You'll know. You'll see. You'll feel the awful, creeping, crawling terror that stands your hair on end and brings a scream to your lips.
So, yes, the Boris Karloff classic, the 1932 The Mummy, not The Mummy meets Abbott and Costello.
I'll tell you what you do. You sit here, I'll sit over there, and when the mummy comes out and goes to choke you, I'll whistle like this.
Not the Brandon Fraser nightmare that came out years later. You have to go to the classic.
This brings us to the next category 2 defect, which is shell, often called elephant ear for the sort of likeness of the outside piece of the shell. This is just a naturally occurring genetic defect that comes up in some varieties more than others. I mean, it's not unusual to see this in SL varieties coming from Kenya, and now that they're being cultivated other places. The shell, of course, is manifest as almost like a little S curve on the back of an oversized seed, where two pieces will essentially break apart. If they're separate, they can be counted each as an instance of the shell defect. 5 shells would equal 1 full category 2 defect. And what should we be scared of or use as our Hollywood reference, Mark, for shell?
Well, that would be the 1973 spooky film The Exorcist with Linda Blair. When she was possessed, she was a shell of a human being.
I love it. I love it. We could do this all day long. The next category 2 defect is my personal favorite when it comes to category 2s. If I may,
you have a favorite.
This one is just a lot of fun, and just because it's such a clever name, we're talking about floaters. Mm-hmm. And the reason these are called floaters is because they'll float. This is a seed that is going to affect the appearance of the green. It's usually gray, white, bloated, somewhat oversized, faded in color. But these coffees are not going to roast consistently. They're not as dense as a properly developed seed. And if you're floating coffee as a matter of classification in the cherry form, this is what you would be skimming off the top. Now, this defect is very often overpicked when it comes to new graders. So look out. And it's not often that it arises, but 5 of these would equal 1 full defect. Of course, the issues can be everything from earthy, moldy, damp tastes hay-like and musty characteristics, but they can also take on overly roasty and carbony characteristics as well. What do you have for us, Mark?
Well, Floater was an easy one because I this was one of the out of the gate I knew how to match this one. It was the 1980 movie with William Hurt called Altered States, where he was a psychologist who was experimenting with sensory deprivation tanks, where people floated and took hallucinogenic drugs to know nothing good happened and nothing good came of that. So
our atoms are 6 billion years old. We've got 6 billion years of memory in our minds. Memory is energy. It doesn't disappear. It's still in there. That's a physiological pathway.
Yes, the film has, or the poster for the film has people floating with these kind of tubes sticking in them. So it's a creepy poster. It's a very creepy movie. And being a child of California, where a lot of people had sensory deprivation tanks in their garages, it was something that I was all too familiar of growing up.
I was going to say, this sounds like a normal Saturday afternoon for you.
Yeah, exactly. If this movie would have been set in Marin County, I would have believed it.
Floater, there you have it. Category 2, 5-to-1 full equivalent, which brings us to Parchment. What do you have for us for Parchment?
Well, Parchment, I have a very terrible 2005 movie called Locusts, The Eighth Plague. The only star in that movie worth anything was MTV's Dan Cortez. Really bad film.
All right.
If you remember Dan Cortez. And the locusts came from these kind of, I don't know what you would call it, what the locusts are born from. But they were hatched out of these parchment-looking kind of eggs. So
this Homeland Security Task Force is under presidential order to put an end to the locust threat.
Yeah, no, and that brings us to a fair kind of understanding of what parchment looks like. I mean, this is the pergamino that coffee is inside. It's a seed skin, if you will, that protects the seed, and would most typically the coffee would be dried in this, in all but very few origins. And it's supposed to be dry milled off, or de-hulled. That's a part of the dry milling process that would remove the parchment. So the parchment defect is actually when the seed is still inside the parchment itself. That we call parchment coffee. It's going to affect the appearance of the green. It's going to, of course, roast potentially differently, or introduce that thick papery husk that you would not want in your finished roasted coffee. So that is Parchment. 5-to-1 equals 1 category 2 defect. And related to Parchment and related to the pod that we talked about as a category 1 defect is the hull or husk. Yes. This is our final category 2 defect. It is a 5-to-1 full equivalence. And where did you point us, Mark?
Well, wrapping it up, I went back to Stephen King, one of his classics, the 1984 movie Children of the Corn. Because corn has husks.
Because corn has husks.
He speaks to me always, but today he is displeased. He is displeased with you, Malachi.
Classic. Hull and husk, of course, the cup issues are potentially serious. And of course, roasting something like this is dubious, low moisture, dry material, potentially small fragments. But we can get everything from musty, earthy characteristics to moldy, damp, fermented, potentially phenolic taste, given the fact that you're talking, in the case of the husk itself with the cherry skin and material, this is a high sugar fruit that has been dried and can introduce these types of more agricultural and moldy flavors. But in the case that you just have, the hull of the parchment material, this is certainly very flammable, will ignite much faster than a coffee seed would. So coffees that you might be finding lots of this material in would be a danger in the roaster that way. All that said, 5 of these would equal 1 full category 2 defect. Now, just to wrap again and to remind listeners, up to 5 category 2 defects are allowed according to SCA in a specialty coffee sample of 350 grams. So we're making essentially a count of the entire physical defect inventory, every singular instance. We are tallying and doing our full equivalent crossover, meaning if we have 6 hulls or husks, we have 1 full Category 2 defect. There is no rounding according to the standard, so I need 10 to make 2. If there's 11, I still have 2. If there are 12, I still have 2, and so on. If we have Category 1 defects of any kind, we do not have a SCA specialty coffee according to this standards. Keep in mind, these standards are, these defects are going to be found according to any standard, whether you're looking at the typical fine cup preparation 1718 in Brazil all the way to a grade 1, grade 3 in Ethiopia. These are going to be defects that are considered, but they're going to be classified, and the inventory would be analyzed a different way according to different grade in different place. Certainly, if you have requirements or needs in the prep of your green coffee, if you have things that you're more worried about given your, infrastructure, equipment capacities, or lack thereof, these are critical to engage people you're working with as we take a very close look and understand grades that we're contracting in a more intimate way. And we can certainly help you steer clear from things that shouldn't be a consideration before you get into cupping at all. But any final words, Mark, for our listeners for this year's Scary Defects episode?
Final word again at Blockbuster, 20% off any of these films for the month of October. Just mention Todd and Mark, and they'll be happy to do that. Even throw in a free bag of microwave popcorn.
What a deal. Mark, well, I have a lot of watching to do, as I'm sure many of our listeners do. I can't thank you enough for another successful iteration of our Scary Defect episode, fit with a laundry list of fantastic movie recommendations for us to chomp on leading up to and beyond this Halloween.
You've been listening to The X-Files, revisiting, rewinding, reworking episodes of the Exchange Coffee podcast from the past, hosted by Mark Inman and Todd Mackey, and produced by me, Mike Ferguson. Our free use opening theme for this episode was X-Files UK Drum Beat by Ronnie Drake. Our closing theme is Coffee Shop Acoustic Funk by Nick Panic. Here comes your postscript, but stick around for some housekeeping on the other side.
Yeah, every year, starting in June, I plan the year's Halloween costume. I have them made. I have them made to measure.
You do not.
And each year
you have these tailored.
I do. I'm not kidding.
If you've enjoyed this or any podcast on the Exchange Coffee Podcasting Network, please do all the things: like, subscribe, tell 3 friends. Right now, I'll wait. You'll find a link to our listener survey in the show notes. Please take the survey.
Please, I'm begging you.
And remember 2 things. You can always email us at theexchange@kavoya.com, and Black Coffee is performed by the one and only Ella Fitzgerald.